Hey guys, all here. It's day 2 of the Kickstarter. So first of all, I'd like to thank all the early backers. Most of you are from the first Kickstarter, so I'm very glad to see you guys back. It feels very good that you guys are back in the project again, showing faith in me, showing interest, showing enthusiasm. It really does help me a lot. For those still on the fence, hey, there's still time. Plenty of room for new people from the first Kickstarter or people just coming by. So this is an update. I'm going to talk about some of the new things in Void Destroyer 2 and more specifically the differences in ships between Void Destroyer 1 and 2. So during my pitch video, I was more talking about the financial sides, about my sort of personal life type of thing. There wasn't really too much time to talk about new things in Void Destroyer 2, so maybe the pitch video wasn't all that enthusiasm creating. I don't know. But so I'll try to rectify that by creating these sort of updates where I can talk in detail about specific topics. So again, the first update is going to talk about the differences between ships from Void Destroyer 1 to Void Destroyer 2. So maybe some of the older backers will be a little more interested in the beginning, but then hopefully the end when I'm showing new ship features in Void Destroyer 2, hopefully it'll be interesting for everybody. So once again, thanks for backing, and hope to see a lot more of you guys. Okay, so for our first demo, we're going to talk about the past. These are ships from Void Destroyer 1, in the lovely cel-shaded graphics. In front of us is a fighter, that is a Corvette, that is a frigate, that's a destroyer, that's a cruiser, and there is a carrier. I'm going to jump into tactical mode just to kind of show it a little easier from an overhead perspective. But if you notice, the fighter isn't that much smaller than a Corvette here. And the Corvette isn't that much smaller from a frigate. And the destroyer isn't that much bigger than the frigate. So ship sizes were kind of real-time strategy type sizes where ships weren't that large. You know, in real-time strategy games, that's the kind of scale you tend to work with. Void Destroyer tended to be more on the real-time strategy side. So I'm going to do a quick flyover. Which didn't take a lot of time at all, right? Let's do another flyover from one end of the ship to another. That didn't take too long at all, right? So these things stuck in my mind, and when working on Void Destroyer 2, the goal is to fix these issues. Alrighty, so now we're in Void Destroyer 2, and yeah, things look a little bit different, but let's not talk about the art style just yet. I'm going to save that for another update. Let's jump into tactical mode so we can see what's going on. So these two ships are fighters. These are Corvettes. And there's now heavy fighters, medium fighters, light fighters. Same thing with Corvettes. This is a light Corvette, and we go from there up to a heavy Corvette. The thing about having light, medium, and heavy ships is that this lets me change the difficulty, lets me tweak it, lets me have a better player progression in terms of first you get a light fighter, then you get a medium fighter, then you get a heavy fighter. You go from there. So there's more steps. That means there's less of a grind or less of a wait between getting the next ship. So the first thing is in Void Destroyer 1, this ship was a frigate. However, in Void Destroyer 2, it's a Corvette. Sorry, it's a Corvette. So it gets bumped down a class. These are frigates here. This ship used to be a destroyer, but now it's a frigate. So if we look at the old comparisons, we have a fighter, we have in the old game a frigate, and in the old game a destroyer. In Void Destroyer 2, they're significantly different sized. So this size is much more believable for a frigate. This size is much more believable for a Corvette relative to a fighter. I'm going to do a little flyby. It's actually kind of hard to show this off too much because I don't have that many large ships yet. Largest ship really is this frigate here. and the rest are kind of works in progress ships. So let's do a flyby by this frigate. Let's see how long this takes. Okay, we are about at the edge of it. So speeds are a little bit different too. Okay, I just smacked into it. So if you ignore that horrible space collision. Alright, let's try this again. So I'm going to do a flyby. I'm going to switch to another view so I can avoid hitting it. So the flyby of this fighter next to a frigate in Void Destroyer 2 takes about the same amount of time as a flyby in Void Destroyer 2, Void Destroyer 1, I'm sorry, next to a carrier. So much different sized ships. You know, a carrier is much larger than a frigate, but in Void Destroyer 2, the relative scales are in such a way that the ships are more larger compared to each other. So again, the goal is to make Void Destroyer 2, at least in the beginning of the game, more about the individual ship, more about the player working their way up from a fighter, up, and then eventually to larger ships, to fleets, eventually to bases, to owning mining ships, transport ships, things like that, those kinds of things. That's the focus, and to reflect that, the scale changed, and of course to correct what I call my mistakes from the first game. They're really just a part of learning, in game design over the years, and kind of my preferences too. I hope your preferences as well. I hope you guys like this scale more. I hope you like these relative sizes better, that they're more believable for you, that they increase the enjoyment of the game for you. And just to hammer this home a little bit more, we have this goofy scene. So what we're seeing here is a mix of the old and the new ships scaled relatively close to each other. Let me just zoom out a bit. So what's happening is this is the new fighter. The old fighter is actually a little bit bigger here. This is the old frigate. This is the new Corvette. Again, Corvette, not frigate, but still about the same size. This is the old destroyer here, and this is the new frigate. Again, everything got bumped down. So the ships, basically, as you can see, the ships that changes in sizes are much more dramatic. The scale is much more different, and this is only going to continue being even more dramatic the bigger the ships get. This is just the frigate here, this big guy here. So imagine a destroyer, a carrier, a cruiser, a dreadnought, those kinds of things. They're going to get really big. Ships are going to get really big. Getting a cruiser, destroying a carrier is going to be a much bigger deal in Void Destroyer 2 than in Void Destroyer 1, because they're, the ships are just going to be larger, more powerful, but at the same time, there's probably not going to be as many of them in one individual battle. Losing a carrier is going to be a very big deal to a faction in the game. It might be one of a kind carrier type of a deal, versus in Void Destroyer, where at the end enemy carriers were kind of common. There was like 5 of them or something, so relatively common, and destroyers were quite frequent and cruisers were quite frequent in that game. So in Void Destroyer 2, it's not going to be the case. It's going to be a little more realistic. Now, if you're worried, hey, does this mean the battles are going to get smaller? Well, the one thing is there's always modding, and there's always the battle editor. The battle editor, for those new to the project, is a way of making your own maps. And modding in Void Destroyer means basically a modder can do whatever they want. It's very open to modding. If you wanted more ships, you could certainly have more ships. But by design, the scale is going to be the ships are going to be larger, but there might be less of them. Battles won't be quite as chaotic, but they'll be more significant. That's the goal. That's the goal for Void Destroyer 2. Okay, so we're back here, and what we're going to talk about now is new things in Void Destroyer 2 as far as ships are concerned. So this is my little test bed of new ships, where I can just demonstrate to you guys what's going on. big thing here is for this ship. This is a transport ship. It's a frigate class transport ship. And what happens is, if you watch the trailer, the cargo pods get attached to these spokes. But if you notice, the spokes are rotating. So the great artists I'm working with that created most of these ships, or had some at least some hand in all of these ships, you know, great artists come with good ideas, great ideas, new ideas, which is what Void Destroyer lives off of. And now this ship has rotating elements. So yeah, maybe for a transport ship it's not that exciting, but don't worry. If you give me something that rotates, if I spend the time to code rotation in, I'll definitely be using it all over the place, and hopefully soon you guys will see a little more interesting portions of rotations. But the other cool aspect is modding. So if a modder has a ship that has rotating parts, well, now there's support for it in Void Destroyer 2. They can certainly mod up a ship that can rotate. Speaking of moving parts, let's look at this ship here. So this ship is a pirate Corvette, and it's got a cool little bit of a feature here. Just get a different angle at it. Basically, this bridge, the bridge you see in the back here, what it's going to do is when I start shooting at this ship from my little tiny fighter, the bridge is going to descend. So it's a little bit of a flavor, a little bit of a boost type thing, you know, a little bit of an immersion type thing where you imagine, hey, the bridge is sort of descending to cover itself, to get better protection from weapons fire, things like that. So again, Void Destroyer 2 has moving parts. And another ship that has moving parts that's pretty cool is this guy. To demo this guy, I'm going to switch to it. Here we are. That's how easy it is switching ships in Void Destroyer. You just click a button. And let's see. Let's target this helpless frigate here. We're going to launch some missiles at it. So if you notice, launching missiles opened up these missile hatches. So again, you know, there's a lot more moving parts in Void Destroyer. Some are linked to combat, like for example that ship that I shot, the bridge descended. Some are linked to weapons, where they have to open before the weapons fire. So like I was saying before, the focus is more on individual ships, making them more solid. Focuses on a little more details in Void Destroyer 1. You know, when the ships are bigger, when the ships are more significant, you can worry about details. Versus Void Destroyer 1, which was all about just crazy big battles, you know, pretty much nonstop. And of course, let's see if I can just demonstrate this a little better. We have weapon recoil like we did in Void Destroyer 1. If you look at the turret's barrel recoil, actually I might have to tweak that. They don't really recoil all that much. But this ship here, this is a ship from Void Destroyer 1 that was upgraded to Void Destroyer 2. Has a much more visible recoil. So in Void Destroyer 2 we have this recoil, this carries over to Void Destroyer 2, but then we have significantly more elements, and more are going to be on the way to further make this you know, a step up from Void Destroyer 1 than its predecessor. All right, so for new people to the game, a lot of ships in Void Destroyer have turrets. For example, this ship has turrets. This means is that you don't necessarily have to be facing an opponent to shoot at it. But of course, everybody from coming from Void Destroyer 1 already knows this. I just wanted to highlight it to the new people watching. So here we have a few examples of light, medium, and heavy fighters. This is a light fighter. This is another light fighter. This is a medium fighter. And we're in a heavy fighter right now, as a mix of both primary guns and turrets. Let's see if we can cause more trouble somewhere else. If you notice, these ships have these rocks attached to them. Let me just blow this ship away because it's in my way there. A little more excitement to the video. Well, if you notice again, this ship has this sort of a rock shield to it. Let's fly up closer to it so we can see it. There it is, this sort of brownish thing. But what these are is these are physical shields. And if you notice, when I shoot this ship, it's not actually taking damage. Its health indicator is still 100%. I'm going to use all our guns at it, including the turrets. Whoops, just kind of turn there. Just turning off. Not quite aligned to it. There we go. So we blasted off its shield, and only now does it take damage, and eventually would be destroyed. Speed that up there. There we go. Of course, all that's left is some debris in the shield. So in Void Destroyer 1, we had these shields already, but not a lot of ships had them. Only actually one ship had them. The reason being is in Void Destroyer 1, a lot of the ships were made before the shield was in place. And I couldn't retroactively add shields to ships, or physical shields like these to ships. But you know, in Void Destroyer 2, because it's sort of a start over, we can do these sorts of things. Here we have another example of a physical shield ship. This ship right here, right in front of us, has a shield, only this time it's not a piece of rock. Instead, it's a metal. There we go. Now it's unfortunately lopsided. Only having one shield there. Let's see, what else can we demonstrate? Let's switch to this ship. Actually, one of the Kickstarter backers talked about thrusters on ships. They still exist. You know, here we see this little ship here having all these kinds of thrusters, but they've been kind of a little bit narrowed down from the first game. Reason being for performance reasons, but they still make their appearances if you like ships with cool engines firing all over the place, little ships zipping around. All right, guys, I think that's about it. Keep in mind, this is still very early in the project. The more models we make, the more cool stuff we'll add to the ships, the more inspiration we get. And of course, keep in mind that you can certainly post comments, give feedback, things like that. Tell us what you know, give us your thoughts. Definitely, you know, keep the comments coming, keep the feedback, both positive and negative, coming. But keep in mind, there's a few rough edges here and there that need to be worked out. Still a work in progress, so it's only going to improve. If you like what you see, the game is only going to improve. Okay, I think this has been long enough, so I'm going to cut it short. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope that you're one of the backers already. If not, you know, please strongly consider being a backer. If you have a friend, let them know. If you have an enemy, let them know. Why not, right? And I hope you'll continue to watching these updates, and we'll continue, you know, talking, sharing more about the game, sharing your thoughts, your goals, your ideas, those sorts of stuff. Again, thanks for watching. Sorry for all the rambling, and I'll see you guys later.